Good evening, everyone. Here we are again. More money's been passed. I know a lot of you have been really wanting to know if it was going to happen, and I told you it was, and it did. So now all we got to do is wait for President Trump to sign it, which we're sure he will, and hopefully by the beginning of next week, the money will start to flow again. So for those of you who haven't done it, I can't urge it enough. Get to the bank tomorrow. You got to get this done if you want to get the help. Some of you don't need it, and that's great, but for those of you who do, it's going to go fast just like it did last time. Those of you who get on it and get it done, you're going to get the help. Those who don't cry to me in 2 weeks because I told you. So get your app in tomorrow. So what are you going to need? Well, first of all, you're probably going to need your 941s. You're going to need your 940s, your earnings reports for the last year, as well as probably the first quarter of this year. You're also going to need to fill out the loan app for the 7A, which I showed you how to do a couple weeks ago. Go back and check that video. The app's changed a little bit, but the truth is it's still basically the same. So you can use that as a guide, get it filled out, get it to your bank. Now on that note, I got to say, the big banks have really dropped the ball in this first round, and I can't say on the second round whether they'll do any better. I just don't know. But if I hadn't got mine yet, and I didn't feel warm and fuzzy with my banker, I'd be looking for alternatives. So what are the alternatives? Well, one, some of the online stuff has just kicked butt the last little bit there. PayPal did good. I heard Square did good. So there's other options out there that you might not have thought about, and I want you to think about it. Also, the community banks. I got to give a hands up to the community banks. They really got it done. I've got guys who were at the big banks for a week and a half and got nothing, and guys who went to the little banks, and the little banks have stepped up. I've always liked little banks, and this is kind of why. They actually care about you. So if you haven't got it and your big bank is not making you feel good, look at alternatives. Don't wait for them to mess this up for you. Take care of it and get it done. So now let's say you have got the loan. What are you gonna do now? Well, one, records. You're gonna have to keep good records. If you don't do good at records, get somebody to help you, because some of these loans are quite substantial and you don't want to have to pay it back just because you don't have good records. So I can't stress this enough. You gotta have payroll records. They've got to be clean. You're gonna need a good set of financials, your P&L, your general ledger that shows where the money went. It's all about show where the money went. Like you said, show me the money. The bank's going to tell you, show me the money. Where did it go? They're not going to forgive this and let themselves be hung out to dry in front of the government. You're going to have good records. It's not going to be an attaboy on the back. It's got to be good. It's got to be clean. And it's got to be able to be followed. So you got to have good records. I can't stress it enough. It's very, very important. I've heard people say, well, why don't we just set up an additional bank account? And for some of you, I know you. If you've got $50,000 in the bank, I'm going to come up by your house next week and you're driving a brand new Harley Davidson. So if that's you and you can't help but spend money if it's in your bank account, move it. Don't make a mistake of spending this money and make it not forgivable. But for those of you who are disciplined, who run your business, who take care of things, is it a good idea? Will it help? It might be. I don't know that it's required. Some of our clients are, some aren't. I think it's more important to have good records. It's all about showing where you spent it, how you used it, and that we can actually see that this is what we did. So when does the forgiveness period start? I've gotten this question a lot. Well, right now, and I think this may change, but for now, all I can do is tell you what I know today. So right now, the loan period starts when you get the money. So if they deposit the money in your bank account tomorrow, you're going to have 8 weeks from tomorrow to show that you used the money like you said you were going to use it. So what does that have to be? Well, they've told us there's a 75-25 split. What does that mean? I mean, all this stuff has so much jargon. What is a 75-25? Well, 75% has to be used for payroll. So that is your wages, your gross wages, the retirement contributions, but not for owners, they're telling us. We'll see if that's the way it ends in the end. But right now, you can't pump up the 401 for the owner, but retirement contributions for everyone else, and insurance, health insurance that is, unemployment, those are your payroll costs. Unfortunately, I don't think it's paying somebody like me. I wish it was, but I don't think that's the way it's going to be. So we're going to have to pay 75% of the loan out in wages. What about number of employees? So some of you have shrunk. Last year you had 10 employees and now you've got 5. Well, simplistically, what that means is 50% of the loan is going to have to be repaid because you only have 5 employees. And you can't bonus everybody out to try to use up the 75% because there's a little something they're calling full-time equivalence. And that means if you got the loan based on having 10 employees, then in order to get it forgiven, you have to have 10 employees. So right now, the way we understand that is if you had 10 and now you have 5, when the 8-week period is up, that other 50% is going to have to be either paid back or converted into a loan. It doesn't mean it all has to be paid back, at least not for now. It just means that what you didn't use will have to be paid back. Now, what about the other 25%? And I just want everybody to know, these numbers are probably going to change. There's a lot of debate going on. We think this may change, but for now, we just have to go on what we know. And what we know is this. The 25% can be used for your interest on your mortgage for your building. It can be used for rent. It can be used for utilities. But if you notice, I said interest. It's not for the principal. It's just for the interest and only for loans that happen before February 15th. So if you just bought a building this week, that loan is not going to count. It's pre-existing debt before 2/15. Now, like I said, I think there's going to be some changes there, and we're going to keep you up to date as soon as they happen. We hope it's going to be relaxed some, but for now, we have to operate based on what we know. So what happens if I don't spend it all? A real common question I've gotten, what happens if I don't spend it all? So let's say in this example that we had $100,000, of which 75,000, 75, 25, 75,000 is for payroll. But during this 8-week period, I can only spend 50,000 in payroll. Well, that means that the other 25,000 is gonna have to be paid back or converted to a loan. That's assuming we were able to use the other 25,000 for mortgage, utilities, etc. So that's got a lot of people really worried. But why? You know, think about this. For some of you, we really don't know what's going to happen over the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. You're telling me that the rest of that money can now be converted into a 1% 2-year loan with a 6-month deferral, and you're worried that you have to spend it all? Think about the positives, okay? You may have just gotten the sweetest line of credit that has ever come about, a 1% line of credit. So don't just spend it to spend it. If it doesn't make business sense, then don't do it, okay? What's the worst that could happen? We pay it back. What's the best that could happen? I get a loan that I get to use for the next 2 years to help grow my business. So don't get trapped into, I gotta spend it, I gotta spend it, I gotta spend it. Let's use our heads and let's come out stronger. We have an opportunity, a lot of us, to do good things. The focus is to try to take care of making sure everybody gets paid. But a lot of you may not have work right now because of the stay at home. So just think about this before you start spending the money. And that leads right into my next question. A lot of people have told me, well, Doug, I got the loan and I'm under a stay-at-home order. I can't bring the employees back because they're on unemployment. They're getting paid more than I can pay them anyway. They don't want to come back. And we can't open because we're not allowed to. It goes back to what I said a minute ago. Don't try to force it. If they're at home and they can't work, it's not your choice. You want to work. Let's just save the money and see what happens. Some people have told me, well, I'm just going to give it all out in bonuses, and that's great. And I don't want the employees out there to think that I'm just a mean person, but we don't know what's going to happen. And so if we bonus all this money out to make sure we don't have to pay it back, and something happens and it drags on, or we have a resurgence or whatever, we just don't know, then what are you going to do? So don't spend it just for forgiveness. It's a 1% loan, it's low interest, and there's nothing that says, there's no prepayment penalties, so there's nothing that says that in 12 weeks we don't just say, you know what, we couldn't use it for what the rules said, I don't like having debt, that's great, I'm paying it back. That's it. It's not that big of a deal. So don't let it make you make bad business decisions. Run your business like a business. Another question, should I give my employees bonuses to make sure I don't have to pay the loan back? Maybe. You're going to have to look at that business by business. So for some businesses, it may make sense to give a hazard pay or a bonus or something like that to encourage the employees to want to come back to work. Because let's be honest, if I can make $900 on unemployment sitting at home, why do I want to come work for you for $600 digging a ditch? That doesn't sound like a good deal. $900 sounds a whole lot better than being in a mud hole. So maybe we encourage them and pay them a little more. Think about it. If the government's going to pay their base salary, I can add $6 to that salary, give them a good raise, and now I just got a guy working for me for $6 an hour so that I can make a profit. So great, if you can share this with your employees, it's a win for you, it's a win for your employees, they're going to remember it, you're going to get work done, because if none of us are working, your competitor is going to find a way. And so if you're not working and he is, he may not come back. And it's good for your employees to think about that too. Don't be short-sighted over a couple bucks. Let's do what we need to do, and let's use our brains. I think that's important. Let's use our brains and let's get through this. Same thing. A lot of the same questions keep coming up just in different ways. But should I give my employees bonuses to make sure I don't have to pay the loan back? And I think I've covered that pretty well. It just is going to depend, but don't spend it just to spend it. It's a cheap, cheap loan. And while it would be good to pay the employees if you can, and that's great, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but are the employees going to be better off 6 months from now if you're still open or if you gave them a bonus today, right? You can always give them a bonus 6 months from now if the business is doing great and everything is wonderful. But remember, we want to stay open. So just think about it before we run into making rash decisions, and that's what we're here for. Call us, we can talk about it, we can talk about things you may not have thought about. I've got some guys that are doing the hazard pay because it makes sense. It's encouraging their guys to work. They're out there making money. It's great for them, it's great for the employees, it's a win-win, and that's really what we want to do. So it's a good thing. Now let's say you weren't able to use all the money, because it's going to happen. A lot of us are just not going to be able to do it because, look, a lot of us are on a stay-at-home order. We're lucky here that we're considered essential. Finally, somebody thinks I'm important, but we're considered essential, so we're all working. But some of you just can't, and we're not going to be able to go back to work till May 4th or May 15th or whenever they decide we're allowed to go, depending on what we're doing. So you're going to have weeks pass and you just can't use the money. Don't do anything crazy. Just realize it's a 1% loan for 2 years with a 6-month deferral on payments. So you're not even going to make payments till the end of the year, first of next year. And it's only a 1% loan, so it's really, really cheap. And as soon as possible, we can pay it back. because I don't think debt is good for a business. There are times for it, of course, but you know, it can really be bad in the long run. And that there's another program out there, a payroll tax deferral. And I'm just going to say this in passing, unless you have to, don't do it. I've seen so many businesses over the years get in trouble over not paying payroll taxes. It's a snowball and it can crush you. So as long as we can pay the taxes, I'm just going to say I'm against. I'm just against the payroll deferral. Let's be smart. Don't do it. Now I know there's going to be times that it's going to make sense. We're going to have to, and that's okay. I understand that. But if you don't have to, let's not dig a hole that we're going to have to try to get out of. Another question is, can you help me? Well, I'm trying. And for some of you, you're going to need help with records, because if you can't do records, this loan, it's going to bite you in the butt, and you're going to have to pay it back, and you're going to say, if only I had kept records, and if I wouldn't have paid this person in cash, and I wouldn't have done this, and I wouldn't have done that, I could have had this forgiven, and now I got this noose around my neck, and I got to pay it back. So, yes, if you need help, as long as there's not too many of you, we can help. We do it all the time. We work with a lot of clients monthly. We help them. A lot of you are my clients, obviously. And if you need additional help to make sure you have the right records, just let us know, and we'll come up with a way to make sure that happens. And on that same note, I don't know if there's an interest, but if there is, I would be willing to do a YouTube live on Sunday at 7 o'clock to help those who have not yet got the loan figure out how to apply by just doing a simple question and answer scenario where we talk about it, we help answer your questions, help you figure out how to fill out the application, and maybe some ideas of where to go. So if that's something that makes sense, shoot me an email and let me know, and I can open up a Facebook Live and talk to you guys and help some of you who just, you're trying, you missed the first one, you didn't know what to do, you looked at it the last couple of days, you're like, I just don't understand. If that's you, once again, shoot me an email, dougb@PagetKC, dougb@PagetKC.com. I'm going to put that up right up here so you guys can see it. And we can set up a Facebook Live, and I can try to help some of you guys, because let's face it, small business is important. That's how we make our money, and I love helping other guys. I'm a small business guy myself, and if we can all get through this together, that's great. So that's it. If there's anything else you guys are really wanting to know, drop it down below. Let me know. I'm trying to pay attention to those, and we'll get through this. Talk to you guys later.